folks. It is author Kevin T. Johns here, and my buddy David Allen Binder has sent me like 17 questions to answer, and I've been drinking all afternoon, and 17 answers seem like a lot to come up with via writing, considering I write all day as a writer, and now is drinking time, so I'm going to answer David's questions via video. Cheers! Okay, David's first question is, how do you pronounce your name? Well, actually, I am Estonian, and it is pronounced Kevin Johns. Where are you currently living? I am living in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. Lived here most of my life, did a little stint in Toronto, Ontario, but spent most of my days in Ottawa. This is where I was born. I'm not actually Estonian. My grandparents are Estonian, so pretty Canadian, I guess. What is the most important thing that you have learned about learned in your writing experience so far? Oh, dude, perseverance. Stick with it. Keep going. Like, so many authors get hung up on book number one, and well, like, what's book number one? Come on, guys. You want to build a career. You don't want to just have one book. And so sticking with it, getting that one book done, and then moving on is so key. What would you say is your most interesting writing, publishing, editing, illustrating quirk? What's my most interesting writing quirk? Violence. Probably violence. All of my books are filled with blood and guts. They're ostensibly YA books in that they're about teenagers, and yet they all feature massive gore. So it kind of disqualifies them as being actual YA books. So basically I write like thriller gore books that have teenagers in them. So that's probably my most interesting quirk. What would you say is your most interesting? Oh yeah, the quirk one, just did it. Okay, tell us your insights on self-publishing. Whew, okay, well, I guess if you want to self-publish, it basically means you are going into business as an entrepreneur. And so being an author is like one career. Being an entrepreneur is a whole other career, and both of those careers are extremely complicated and extremely difficult and challenging. So if you're choosing to self-publish, I think maybe some people think self-publishing is the easier route, but if you're really, and it is the easier route if all you care about is getting a book into the world. But if you care about getting a book into the world and finding readers and making your money back and building a career, then self-publishing is really challenging and is a whole other endeavor onto itself. So that would be my advice regarding self-publishing. It really is about becoming a business, becoming a brand, and learning how to build that is a challenge onto its own right. So if writing a novel isn't tough enough, you got to learn how to be a business on top of that, and that's what self-publishing is all about. Any insights into ebooks versus print books? I don't know. Everyone loves print books. Like, who's going to be like, oh, I don't like print books. I like ebooks only. The reality is ebooks are convenient. They're cheap. We all read them because those two reasons, probably. They're convenient and cheap. But anyone who truly loves books probably grew up reading paperback books. It's what we all love. So, I don't know. What's there to say about it? Ebooks are convenient and cheap, great, but paperback books are paperback books, and you're never going to be able to replace the smell of a book or the texture of a book. I would say 99% of the authors I have ever met want their book out in paperback. Even if their total focus is on selling Kindle, they still want that paperback copy to sit on their shelf, because for most people that's what a book is. An ebook is one way of consuming a book, but a book is paper and ink and all of that on your shelf. So that's my thoughts on paperback. Do you have any secret tips for writers on getting a book published? I think pushing past perfectionism is the most important thing. So many authors, especially first-time authors, get so hung up on wanting their book to be, they want their first book ever to be Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. You know, they want their first book out of the gates to be the biggest, greatest thing ever, and that's just not going to happen. It's not reality. You know, becoming a massive author and writing these masterpieces takes time. And so if you want to get a book published, it's about being willing to say, this is the best I can do right now with the resources and the skill set and the knowledge I have available to me, and then putting it out there and being willing to ship and saying, yeah, maybe it's not perfect. Maybe it's not the greatest thing in the world, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have value. And that doesn't mean it doesn't still deserve to be out there in the world. So that's probably my biggest tip on publishing is like, get over yourself, get over your perfectionism, and get out there and make something happen. How would you suggest someone acquire an agent? So for most things that I'm not an expert in, I go to the experts and I get that knowledge. So you guys probably can't see, but next to me is an entire bookshelf, and every single book here is about writing and publishing and you know, writing stuff. So let me see. I'm sure I have here somewhere. There you go. Right? Like, Guide to Query Letters. And I'm sure I have another one here called, like, where is it? There's one here called like How to Get an Agent or something. But anyway, you know, oh, here we go. Look at How to Get a Literary Agent. Long story short, if you want to get an agent, go read some books on the process, study up on it, do the things required of you, do the hard work, and make it happen. You know, none of the stuff in life is easy. No one's going to hand you all the answers. If you could find all the answers to life in a blog post, then, you know, hey, more power to you. But most people actually have to read books to get the information they need. So, you know, go buy a couple books on how to get an agent, and then do the stuff that the books suggest, you know. 9, do you have any suggestions or help for new writers? Oh my God. So in addition to being an author, I'm also a writing coach. So I have a job where every single day, all I do is work with writers to help them succeed, primarily new writers. So, I mean, you know, I have a million suggestions for new writers, but I would say the most important one is probably creating a regular writing habit, creating a schedule where you use something called, that I call non-negotiable writing time. And that means just scheduling time into your day where you are writing and you're not doing anything else, and you're not leaving your writing till everything else is done, or leaving your writing until the world is perfect. You know, my number one tip for new writers would just be make a writing schedule and stick to it. What was one of the most surprising things you learned with your creative process with your books? Well, I would say the most surprising thing is that nobody really cares. You know, we get so wrapped up in ourselves. Oh my God, what are people going to say? Is my book good enough? You know, are people going to make fun of me or mock my book or whatever? I mean, we get so hung up on ourselves and what people are going to think of our books. But the reality is no one cares. You know, like 300,000 books or 30,000 books or something are published every single year. Yours is just going to be one of them. And so many writers get so concerned that people are going to not like their book, when the real problem is no one's going to care. That's the biggest challenge, is getting people to care. If you have haters, if you have people ripping on your book, good on you, because that means you've made a big enough impact that people actually care enough to hate on you. So, you know, that's the real surprising thing. I mean, we build it up so much in our heads, but at the end of the day, writing a book, it's not that big a deal. It happens every day, and most people aren't going to care. The real challenge is figuring out how to make people care about your work. How many books have you written? Oh, okay. I don't know. So I have 6 books that went out under my own name, and I am publishing a 7th shortly. And then I have a career as a ghostwriter where I've written at least 4 books under other people's names. So 11. I think I've written 11 books. Yeah, but I mean, I also have like short guides and things here and there, so I don't really know in total. I kind of generally just count the stuff I publish under my own name. That's like goes out in like fairly full length stuff. So I would say, 7 books under my own name, and then 4 more, I think, under other authors' names as a ghostwriter. Do you have any trips? Trips. Do you have any tricks or tips to help others become a better writer? Yeah, many. I think the biggest thing is understanding that writing is a craft. Okay, it's not some magical thing where God reaches down and blesses you with the magic of the muse and suddenly you're the greatest writer ever. Writing a book is very much like learning how to build a brick wall. You need to do an apprenticeship. You need to do the hard work of like learning your craft, and that's how you're going to get better at it. You're not going to get better at it sitting around waiting for the perfect idea or the perfect moment where everything's going to be great. The muse is going to inspire you. You need to approach it like a craft and learn. Read. Like I said, there's a reason I have, 25 books next to me right now on writing, so that I can get better at writing. And so that's, my number one tip there. Do you have any suggestions for providing twists in a good story? Yeah, twists are dependent on not being a pantser a lot of the time. There's these people who think they can just make up a story as you go along, and some people can, but a lot of the time, if you want to have really good twists that pay off well, you need to plan ahead of time. You need to do the story planning long before you ever start drafting so that you know how to set up those twists, right? And have good payoffs. Something I will say, though, is that I like to end chapters with something I call the thrust. Let me see, the thrust and twist. I don't even remember who called it that, but it's that idea that you want to end every chapter by like stabbing the reader in the gut, and then like stabbing them in the gut isn't enough. You then want to like twist, want to give it a little twist. So the thrust and twist, I would say, if you can look at every single chapter you write in your book and say, am I punching the reader in the gut, or am I stabbing them with a knife and then giving it a twist? And that kind of gives the story some good momentum. You never want to really give the reader an excuse to stop reading. And the end of a chapter is a really good excuse to stop reading. So if you stick those thrusts and twists at the end of every chapter, and that can be a cliffhanger, that can be a surprising revelation. That's the stuff that keeps people turning pages and keeps them reading your book at the end of a chapter and wanting to continue on with the next chapter. What makes your book or any book stand out from the crowd? I think the thing that I think as readers, we can all kind of sense authenticity versus like commercial gambits. Like this idea that like, oh, I'm going to write to market, or I'm going to like, try to write something that everybody loves. Screw that. The books that I love aren't the books that you love. We all love our own thing, and the writers who wrote those books stayed true to their vision and stayed true to their authentic voice and what they have to say about the world. So what stands out about my books is that I don't compromise. I don't care if you like my book or not. I wrote this book for a certain audience, and I would love for you to be part of that audience, but that audience is largely dependent on the experiences you've been through in your life. I grew up in a small town as a punk rock kid, getting beat up by hicks and jocks and these guys who picked on me. If you grew up super wealthy in a massive metropolitan city, you might not be able to relate to anything I write about in my books, and that's okay. But, my books aren't for you. My books are for the people who, the punk rock kid in the small town who's going through the same crap I went through. That's who my books are for. And so I think that's what makes any book that stand out. Just not compromising for commercial interest, just being authentic and true, knowing who your book is for, and then writing the book for that person and staying true to that vision. What are some of the ways in which you promote your work? Well, I mean, answering interviews. Interviews are always a great way to promote your work. But I think the best thing you can do to promote a book is just give it away, give it to people, ask people to read it and write reviews, because nobody wants some indie author shoving a book down their throat. Like this crap on Twitter, like buy my book. Like, God, there's so many books in the, like there are like Ernest Hemingway and F. Scott Fitzgerald books that I still haven't read, like a couple of them. Why would I go read your indie romance, when those are out there, right? Like, you got to come up with something better than just read my book, some Facebook ad or something, I really think the best thing you can do to market your book is just get it into the hands of the people who it's meant for, and then ask them to write reviews, and ask them to tell their friends about it, and just don't be afraid to give away your work, because the reality is giving away your work sucks. But I mean, why did you do this? Did you do this like to make $1 million, or did you do this to connect with people and get your message out there into the world, and all of that? So I would say, that's the main way I would promote my work, is finding readers who are in my target audience, and then, offering them my book for free and trying to get them to write a review. That's a pretty good way to promote your book. What is one of the ways that you would do differently now, and why? What would I do differently? Well, on my first couple books, I worked with an editor and a designer named Forrest Adam Sumner. And he was just such an incredible creative partner. And he was just the first editor and designer I worked with. So I don't think I understood how lucky I was to have him. He was charging ridiculously low fees for absolutely extraordinary work. And ultimately, we didn't really have a falling out, but I guess something happened in his life, and he went off and disappeared, and we stopped working together. And I would say, if I could look back on my publishing career, the one thing, I so regret not having him. He made my work so much better. He brought the quality of everything just that much one more level higher. We just connected right off the bat. He was just like that brilliant creative partner that you want. And because he was the first editor I ever worked with, I didn't realize how lucky I was. So if I could do anything differently, it would probably just be, go back in time and pay him more money, and really show him how much I appreciate what he brought to the projects, because he really went above and beyond. And that's a rare, special thing. Okay. What is a saying or mantra that you live by? Well, I love the Ernest Hemingway quote, "We're all apprentices in a craft where no one ever becomes a master." I think that's really important to keep in mind. Like, I just love that it's Hemingway. Everyone thinks of Hemingway as this master of the craft, and yet here he is saying he's but an apprentice, and that he's always learning, that we're all always learning. And I think that's so useful in so many ways. I think we always want to be improving, and we always want to be learning as writers, but I think we also want to acknowledge that, like, we're never masters. We could always do better, and that's okay. And we don't have to beat ourselves up for not being geniuses. Hemingway says that he was an apprentice, so it's perfectly okay for you and me and whoever's out there trying to write their novel to be apprentices as well. Anything else you would like to say? Well, I'll say that I am a writing coach. And if you were looking for some support, some advice, some accountability to help you through the novel writing process, pop by my website. Can you guys hear my kids? I have 3 daughters, and they're upstairs going crazy, so you might be able to hear them. But anyway, yeah, that's what I'll leave you with, is if you are a writer watching this, if you're struggling with your writing, or if you're looking for support or looking for advice, if you just want a partner to help you through this crazy process that is writing a book, I am a writing coach. You can visit www.kevintjohns.com and I have information there about my group coaching program, my one-on-one coaching, or you can just send me an email at kevin@kevintjohns.com. This writing thing is my life. It's my passion. It's what I care about. It's what I do every day. So, if you want someone to connect with, if you're feeling alone, if you're feeling depressed, if you're struggling, if you have a story within you and you just don't know how to get it out, or you don't believe that you can do it, I believe in you. I know you can do it. If a moron like me can do it, you can do it too. So, hit me up, and I'd love to hear from you. Or check out my novels. I've got 2 young adult novels called The Page Turners and The Page Turners Economy of Fear. And then I have a thriller called M School, which I think is pretty great. It came out last year. I'd love for you to check it out. So thanks so much for watching. I hope these interview questions were good. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you get in touch with me. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks, everyone.